when billions share it, the algorithm bangs on the door of the bubble.
Repeat after me. The internet is real life, or at least a part of it. The cultural zeitgeist has not updated itself to include the fact that basically all of us pay our bills, get our food, meet our new friends and lovers, like on the internet. All of this happens on the internet. And you know what else happens on the internet much more effectively and efficiently and in a more widespread manner? Activism. I am not saying that it needs to supplant all other types of activism, but what I am saying is that we need to stop denigrating it. Stop saying stuff like online activism doesn't count. It literally does count. I mean, ask the people at Starbucks or at McDonald's if the big hits they're seeing to their wallets count to them. Our cultural zeitgeist has not updated itself to include the fact that all the stuff that we see happening in these boxes, all the people that we're interacting with, all of the ways that we have fully integrated the internet into our lives and other ways doesn't really seem to translate for us. And of course, part of that is because there's kind of a campaign against acknowledging these things, because like that's why they're trying to take away TikTok, not because it's like affecting us badly, even though in some ways it is, like let's keep it a stack. But the reason they're doing that is because it's showing us the truth. It's connecting us in ways that human beings have never been connected before in human history. And it's so new that it's like 10, 20 years that it's been like this, to the point where one of the reasons we haven't updated our sort of mental map of this is because it's just so new. And I'm not suggesting that it is more or less valuable. I'm just suggesting that it is just as valuable at very least. I'm a content creator, so obviously I see it. But like for those of you who are not, like think about how many followers you have online, and think about if you have that many people in your like personal Rolodex. Not that Rolodexes are a thing anymore, but you know what I mean. In your personal address book, could you reach that many people? Could you, if you emailed everybody on your email contact list, could you reach that many people? We'll always push back on the use of the terms online versus IRL because the internet is very much part of IRL, and we acknowledge that in so many other ways in our lives, but not in terms of activism and change making. And I'll be real with you, there's a little bit of ableism to it because we still kind of view like the most important activism as like people marching in the streets or like and throwing Molotov cocktails and that kind of thing. And yes, that is all important. But now we have another method that not only is more inclusive, but is arguably more effective and has a bigger reach because of its connection to these algorithms. I've said this before, like metaphorically, the internet is the collective unconscious made flesh, made into something that we can actually grasp and interact with. And all of us are just hearing the voices of our parents, grandparents, whatever, sort of boomer mindset. And I don't mean every boomer's the same, you know what I mean? Internet is new to the human animal. And some people are still disdainful of it because they still have this sort of ableist like mindset that like you have to go out into the street and do the thing and you have to be able-bodied and stand out in front, and that's the only thing that really matters. And not only is that not true, but you're also not considering that there's so many people who can't or don't want to, for whatever reason, be standing out in the front where they could get jacked up by 12. Most of our lives are just like trying to get by. And so we couldn't even spend as much time in meat space doing the activism we would like to if we wanted to, because our lives are just not like built that way because of how the overculture wants it. And they hate that we have a way to, with like minimal physical effort, to reach that many people. Let's be real with ourselves. A lot of people use the excuse of like, well, I don't use the internet like that. I don't use my social media like that. I don't do politics in my social media. And that's just excuses. You have all those people on your social media so that you can reach them. And what is more important than to talk about people suffering, about the world that urgently needs to be changed? Is it just more important to you to be able to tell them about your last meal or your last, vacation that you went to? The global change and global awareness that is happening about Gaza, about like everything that's happening right now, that's all because of these little machines we hold in our hands. Our government, probably the worst, most evil empire ever to exist, don't at me, they're actually considering changing course because of how much noise we have made on the streets and online. As somebody who remembers previous lies that we were told by our government. I also remember that, like, if you had one leftist friend who everybody thought was a little bit nutty, like telling you, like, oh, no, the government does this all the time, blah, blah, blah. They get called a conspiracy theorist. Nobody listens to them, and the wheels keep spinning. But now you can, in seconds, right? And because it's physically easier, people say that it's like not as valuable, which is, hello, that's ableism. But now you can just look and find a bunch of videos or a bunch of articles or a bunch of content of people telling you, no, actually, our government has done that millions of times. Reaching people and influencing them when they're not right in front of you is, I argue that it is actually easier and in some ways much better, because ego is less of a factor when a person is consuming something in a place where they don't have to like worry about the social consequences or about like the, about how people will perceive them looking at or thinking a certain thing. They can just make the new changes all in their own mind and then go out into the world and act on that knowledge however they feel like, without the pressure of ego, without the pressure of like it being maybe, tense or conflictual. If we can use the internet to get all our meals and pay all our bills and do all the things that we need to do, why should we not think it just as valid, especially since we have so much evidence that it is valid? Why should we think it not valid that we can make change using the internet?